Welcome to the Devon Corner, where we discuss the world's most practical breed of cattle and the role they play in different production systems. I'm joined today by Tommy and Will Clark of C Squared Cattle. Our families have been friends for a long time. Tommy worked with me on the Lakota Bull Test for years and years and judged the cattle before, the Devon show before. Both these guys' resume speaks for itself, but they're going to judge as a team this year. And as always, we try to do something with some cattle so we can give the consigners, exhibitors an idea of what the judges like. Are we looking for big framed or small framed or heavy muscled or really maternal type females, et cetera, et cetera. So for the first time on the Devon Corner, we're not looking at any Devon cattle at all. We are looking at some Bromby and a Baldy, and we're going to look at some heifers out in the field after this. But um, thank you guys for judging our show and doing the clinic that we're gonna do at the event. And tell me about the cattle in this pen, what you see, what you like, and why, and anything that you don't like.
Well, first of all, thank you and welcome to our operation. And we are multifaceted. We do not currently have any Devon cattle. On the other hand, they have their place, and I recognize that. We do try to breed low input production cattle that maximize the resources available. And having said that, you can find those cattle within breeds, but there are also cattle that are outside of that paradigm within most every breed. So we try to fit things that make sense. And to be quite blunt, my favorite breed is a crossbreed. Most people think I just can't make up my mind. That's why we have so many different kinds, but it does take all. However, we're actually right now standing in a pen that has a few Bronve cattle, a breed that we've worked with for a number of years to some degree, and probably much less for the last decade. And then we decided that we were kind of leaving some things on the table that needed to be recognized. So the quick story on that got us right back into it. We had a few Bronve cattle, Bronve influence cattle, and for the last several years, we would put our most cherished embryos. I'd sort those cows and put them in those Bronve cows, and embryos from Angus and Charolais or whatever. And then started asking myself the question, well, why are you doing that? Those cows do a great job with them. That's why. And so within that breed, there are some individuals that I've fortunately had a couple decades of time to figure out the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. And anyway, we do have here a couple, and we can walk them. Will was a young chap when we were really more involved in the Bronby world, but I think in our conversations when over the last several years about, well, what breeds do we not want if we're trying to streamline and things. And it was an interesting conversation as I remember it, because the first dart I threw is I said, okay, what about the Simmentals? Want to get rid of them? That's Will's corner. And anyway, no, I don't want to get rid of them. I said, well, I'm not getting rid of the Angus or the Charolais. And what about the Bromvies? And Will said, no, I kind of like the Bromvies. And there is a reason for that. And I'm thankful that he recognizes that as well. However, these particular cows, it's really random that they're here. Two of these cows are pregnant cows that are currently involved in an ET program that we're doing some IVF embryo work with. And the one, and I'll try not to captivate everything, this cow, uh, Will and I took a road trip to Kansas in 2012, and I bought a group of half sisters from a guy that we know in North Dakota, and I brought them back, and I ended up really trading out of them eventually. And I heard discussion about this particular cow over the years and what a good job she had done in a commercial herd. And I went back after I became self examining about, well, why don't you have more Brombies? And I just went to look at the cow. And the cow was about to turn 15 years old. I watched her walk around. I looked at her feet. And at that time, her udder, where she just was weaning a calf, and I went back home and got my trailer. I'll leave it at that. So I call her, it's not a good tag name. I call her the needle because she's the needle in the haystack of what I thought was a pretty good group of heifers 14 years ago. And I don't know where all of them are right now, but that one has definitely surfaced. And we put in embryos out of that cow last Friday and plan to do so.
Talk to me about her feet and legs. The Devon breed is naturally a little more sickle hocked than most breeds, and certainly than this particular cow. What are your thoughts on that for exhibitors?
I prefer more angle to the hock than most show judges do because that flex in the hock is suspension, and cows that last a long time are not particularly straight legged. And I'd have to look hard to find something that's really straight legged around here, but most all the cows that last will have some flex in their hocks.
Will, what do you think about feet and legs? And that cow's very correct in how she's up on her feet. Um, the Devon breed being sickle hocked, how does that impact, or what would you say to potential consigners about that? Stay away from it, or like your dad, not as concerned about it?
I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. I still think it's obviously a lot more functional, like he said, than being straight. Um, when they do get sickle hocked, I guess I look at their feet just to make sure they're deep heeled enough. But essentially, if they do both of those things at the same time, then they're fine.
On this cow being 15, obviously her feet and legs aren't bothering her. Oh.
Yeah, she's deep heeled. She's got tight cloves, good feet in general. They never been touched. So at the end of the day, when they're that old, they prove that their feet are worth it.
So we got three Bronby cows over here that are all nice cows. This one coming up behind her, I would argue, has a nicer udder and just as good feet and legs. A little straighter in her back. Of course, she's probably a younger cow, but in the show ring, where would you guys place those two cows? Taking your needle in the haystack and production and all that off the table, right? Just visual assessment. How would you place those two cows?
Go ahead.
Yeah, me personally, it's a tight pair. We're looking at a little bit larger framed one, a little bit more moderate framed one. Not that is the biggest deal. Ultimately, I think that the cow that is younger here maybe just has some age advantage, and she's maybe a bit more powerful. She is still functional. I mean, that's the bottom line. If they're functional, they have to be that first for us to really consider them. But I don't know. It's tight pair. What do you think, guys?
I agree, and they are very similar in many ways. Probably the biggest difference is their actual scale and frame size. And to be quite candid, the Y150 cow, the cow I call the needle, is a bit big, but it all boils down to uh, the the constitution, meaning that this cow's big, but if she didn't have so much rib and barrel, she would not suit me as well. And the younger cow, she is a 5-year-old, Jeremy, you're correct. She is quite a bit younger. Um, she has very similar depth and capacity through her chest and width between her legs, which is really for me, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about females or males. I like to look at the ground and go up. And if they aren't out on their corners and all, then they leave something to be desired as beef cattle. Because at the end of the day, whether we're completely a grass from start to finish or whatever, we're trying to hang beef on the skeleton, and we've gone through quite a dramatic shift in this industry over the years, where we selected for them to be very big after we had them very small. I think moderation is key, and they don't all have to be the same size, but they do need to be the same basic phenotypes, meaning that females need to look like females, meaning that maternal shape and wedge. And we will look at some other cattle shortly that are more refined because that's just a breed difference. But I think that being square cornered, starting off at the ground, being square cornered, um, having a foot structure primarily that's not rolling or hooking or any of that, and then go up from there. And then at the end of the day, they're here to produce. And back to your Devon breed, as I understand it and as I know them, they're cattle that can be self-sufficient, don't need inputs. Um, we've got these cattle around here right now where they look like they're in a spoiled scenario, but that's mainly so I can get my hands on them twice a day while I'm giving them their shot schedule. And then the younger cow, granted, she's not quite as gloomy as she was once upon a time. She just weaned this calf that would have adjusted over 700 pounds.
The big calf there is off
Yes,
the young
yeah.
calf.
This calf was weaned, when put that weaner in him 2 weeks ago off the younger calf.
Well, I was going to knock her a little bit because she hadn't shed off as good as these other cows, but
This is the cow I'm talking about.
she's pouring. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Not this one over
no,
here.
this one has the baby.
I got you.
And you're right. In fact, she hadn't shed does give me some concern. But yeah, that cow is a functional kind of a cow. But we'll see how she does. And she is younger yet.
Well, to your point, they have to perform in your environment. We don't all have the same environment.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Any
other comments before? Yeah, let's go look at some heifers. Some bred heifers, some open heifers.
These heifers are either fall breds that have been ultrasounded and are going to calve in the fall, or short-bred spring-bred heifers. And we threw them all on this pasture that did have some cereal rye in it, but I wanted to kind of mob it down and come back and plant a summer annual in here because of the conditions that we're in, and I'm a little worried about available forage. So these heifers are being basically lawnmowers right now and tightening this up so I can run a no-till drill in it.
What will you plant?
I'm going to plant a brown midrib sorghum Sudan grass.
Plant hairy vetch with it. Man, you do so well together.
You know, hairy vetch is something that I feel really good about when I see it in a native pasture, and it will stay better than folks think it will.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Maybe that's just a Virginia thing, but it does the same thing in my place.
No, it does. And you know what? Where you can really notice it is a spring like this when it's dry and it's still there. That's pretty resilient.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have in this group, there's a Simmental or two, which would be some of Will's contribution from a cow that he had a dozen years ago, and she's still here, by the way. And then there's some Charlet that have been a project that I have kind of ramped up in the last 10 or 15 years, I guess. And then there's still a couple of Herefords.
How strict are we culling for fertility? When I hear a lot of old cows, obviously you got a big herd too. There's attrition, but are we giving cows second and third chances, or are we no second chances?
No. That's why I'm really proud of the old cows that hang in there, and that's what makes it really hard when you have a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old that comes up open and it really hurts, and then you turn around and look at the 11-year-old that's
still
bred back a calf early for the next time, and you turn back to the younger one and say, what is your excuse? But yeah, there's some Charlet crossbred heifers here, like this one that stepped out in front. There's a Brondby heifer right behind her. There's some black ones.
These two heifers right here looking at us,
Right.
very different style heifers, very lovely heifers, both of them. I don't want to describe them. Tell me what we think, what we prefer.
Well, the heifer on the right is definitely
The
a
slicker
stouter
one?
No, well,
our right.
On our right, yes, is the stouter heifer. To be honest, like is in a lot of cases, I'd love to put the two of them in a blender and then pour both of them out.
100%.
Because this is a Charlet cross heifer here between the Brondby, and this one is a purebred Charlet. But this heifer is extremely stout, meaning big top, big ended, heavier boned. Um, yet she has enough rib to have function. And then the the split-eared heifer, honestly, and the next one are more refined and more feminine, and I really appreciate that about them. And they are but they're not quite as powerful. However, remember I said earlier I like crossbreds. These are crossbreds. This I started out with Charolais this time around. I had Charolais in the 70s. They were a totally different kind of Charolais. I started back with them, considering them a terminal breed in a crossbreeding scenario. But since then, and she's probably not the best example of that, there's others. But since then, we have focused more on the maternal aspects of even our Charolais cattle. And, you got to have cows to stay in business. So that is what we are more headed towards.
So is that saying you prefer these more feminine heifers over the heavier muscled heifer?
I do. And muscle is not the only part of that, meaning a lot of the heifers that are not as feminine are bigger butted and heavier muscled. But you can have both
She
flavors.
retains her femininity,
She,
but she's definitely not as
no,
refined or
she's
feminine
coarser.
as.
She's coarser fronted and all that, but she does still have enough body capacity in the rear third. I think she's going to be all right.
Will, do you agree with that, or see something different?
I think you guys see it the right way. I'm looking at a heifer that's a little bit more feminine, maybe slicker haired, versus one that's more powerful. And as we mentioned, a little bit coarser. I think, structurally, I would give a marginal advantage to the heifer that's probably a little bit lighter muscle here. And at the end of the day, she is more feminine. I kind of tend to lean with the power, especially when you get in behind the other one. Um, I have faith in both of them, but I think I would probably lean with the bigger one in this case. Not because she's bigger, but just because she is dimensionally the stouter heifer. Stands further out on those corners with all four of her legs. And yeah, like you said, she retains that femininity. She's good structured. Nothing to take away from the one that's behind her there, but I think maybe she just gets a little outpowered.
Interesting. So you two might have to work some stuff out between the two of you when.
Well, that's
Uh,
probably the benefit. I mean, it wouldn't make much sense if we were, you know, exactly the same on everything to have us both out. Like I think we, mostly agree on everything and can come to terms. But at the same time, we see both sides of the picture and
but I
try
know
to.
your dad, so you guys better come Thursday and start judging these things.
The the reality is, and I actually do agree with Will's comment on terms of basically the committee approach, because there is some give and take. And I have that argument with myself, quite frankly, on a regular basis. And there are, as I said, within these breeds, there's more differences within the breeds in many cases than there are between the breeds. And
Well, and I've had heifers that close that I like one better on Tuesday, and I go back out Wednesday morning and have changed my mind.
and the two of us have just had that same observation right up here with two bull calves that we've been back and forth on for months.
But that's the beautiful thing too, because when you have multiple people in the operation putting eyes on it like that, it forces you to assess them. And I think a lot of people stop doing that.
I think
It's
that
quite a heifer here.
it's always good to have
She's
kind
the
of
one.
a check on things.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you guys very much. I think that gives us some good insight into what you guys are looking for. Any advice, recommendations for potential consigners, things that you don't want to see, things that uh, you would point them to lean towards?
I think bring what you're proud of, and then whenever I am evaluating, remember that it is my opinion. And my opinion has been shaped by some time and from some other people's input that I've encountered and respected.
That's
And
why we got Will helping us.
that's right. And I will tell you one thing, and you can do what you want with it. But I recently revisited a moment, and it was at least 60 years ago. And my grandparents and a couple of my uncles had gathered a group of cows to sort the calves off, had their trucks backed up, ready to go to town. And my two uncles that were there, they were both in their 40s. I was a little kid outside with my grandmother, and she sat there and watched what they were doing. And at the appropriate time, the little Scandinavian lady marched right into the middle of the pen and said, "You're not taking that one, and you're not taking that one because she's out of a sister to that one." And I'm like, whoa. And I saw my uncles like, oh shit, they'd heard that before. At that point, I recognized that they were not all the same. To my uncles who'd been in the cattle business all their life, it was put pounds on the truck, take them to town.
Commodity.
My grandmother's perspective was she knew which cows were reliable. And so that put me into a totally different perspective at a young age.
So you and I have had a lot of talks about maternal lines and the power they carry, and that, yeah, that's observation is key, right?
Yep.
Will, any final words of advice?
Nice pile of cow shit. That's great. I don't know. I think kind of like you said, take something that you think highly of. I mean, we're excited to see what there is to offer. That's probably all I would say. And at the end of the day, yeah, I'm excited for the opportunity. I think it's gonna be fun.
Well, thank you guys. I did misspeak earlier. I don't know if my mic's working now. You will get to judge production because if they have a calf side, obviously that plays into
That's always
the
good
decision.
that's always good to see. But on the other hand, then we have to project what our basically gut feeling or insight is that again, you asked a minute ago and I wasn't able to respond directly to that, but on females, I want to see femininity. I want the expression of things that I equate with fertility. Earlier, I started talking from the ground up structurally because I don't want to put my heart and soul into something that is likely to fall off of the pathway at some point. And then it's very simple when you get back down to bulls. There again, masculinity and power. And Jim Lingle, who was at Y when I was a kid, used to equate it to some of the guys that I knew that worked there as interns as football players and cheerleaders. And strong femininity will emulate strong masculinity in the males. And typically, if you stick to those as grounding points, your fertility will be just fine.
100%. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.